very often we tell ourselves, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. We've got some thought, some feeling, some emotion, and there's a sense that it's wrong or inappropriate or unreasonable, and that we should be thinking or feeling some other way. So we tell ourselves, oh no, I shouldn't be feeling this way. An example is, imagine, you're a very successful person in your career, but then you make a mistake, you fail a particular project, and you tell yourself that, you notice you feel ashamed, a bit down, low, embarrassed, and you tell yourself, oh, I shouldn't feel ashamed. I've succeeded at everything else in my life. I can't expect perfection for myself. I really, there's no reason to feel ashamed at all. It's fine. Or if you have an aging parent that you're caretaking, maybe they have a challenging condition like dementia, and you find yourself getting very frustrated at having to repeat yourself all the time. You're just really angry at your parent, essentially. And you tell yourself, oh, I know I shouldn't be angry at them, but they just piss me off when they, act in a certain way. I know I shouldn't be feeling that way though. We feel guilty at the emotions we're having. Another one might be, say you have bought an expensive flat and you feel like quite fortunate to be in that situation, but you're upset because there's something wrong with it, or there's some problem, and you feel really upset, and it genuinely upsets you almost disproportionately, and you think, oh, I'm so ungrateful though to feel this way. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I feel like that's just really ungrateful to be this way. Why are we doing this? Why do we tell ourselves what we should and shouldn't be feeling? Because when it comes to emotions, there is no such thing as what we should and shouldn't be feeling. They arise automatically. We don't have a choice in the matter. We feel how we feel, and that's the end of it. So there's really only the choice of just being honest and accepting how we feel, or fighting against it, rejecting it, denying it in some way. And the reason we do the latter is, there's a very good reason. It's because it's really painful to feel that emotion. Shame is an incredibly painful emotion. Sadness or feeling upset. And it's never really about the thing. It's always about something deeper that's even more painful. So if you feel ashamed at a work project, it's not that you've really failed at the work project. It's because that triggers a deeper sense of not being good enough, or maybe being incompetent or not appreciated. Something like that was much earlier in childhood. Or similar with the aging parent, a lot of us have a deep wound of helplessness that came from being a little baby, a little toddler, when we feel totally helpless. And that anger protects us from helplessness. And when we're caretaking with someone with dementia, there's oftentimes nothing we can do in the situation, and we feel helpless. And so that situation is triggering this really deep, painful sense of helplessness, right? That goes much deeper than what's just happening immediately in front of you, the scenario. Also, sometimes it can feel really threatening to our identity. So if I have a self-image as a successful person, that's kind of the self-image I've created and crafted. That's how I survive in the world. Anything that threatens that will feel extra painful. So if I fail at this work project, it's not just that I failed at that, it's actually attacking my image. I might have to rethink that image, and I'm really attached to that way of being, right? That's sort of worked for me to be this successful person. Or you might have an image as someone who's really tough and resilient, and so if you're feeling vulnerable or weak, that shatters, that threatens that image, that identity that you have. Oftentimes we've simply been conditioned that emotion is unsafe. If you were angry as a child and your dad either just yelled at you, or your mum gave you the silent treatment, you very quickly learn that emotion is not acceptable. And so it will feel threatening for anger to come up, and we have to come up with reasons why it shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be feeling this, right? Because that links back to that sense, because if I do feel this, then dad's going to yell at me, mum's going to give me the silent treatment. That's incredibly painful. So what we do is we avoid the emotion, and come up with a rationalization for why it shouldn't be there. We say, I shouldn't be feeling this way because ... And that gives us the sort of, we love a reasonable sounding rationalization for why we're doing that. And again, I want to highlight, as always, this is totally innocent. I'm not suggesting this is bad or wrong in the slightest. I'm just pointing out that this is what we're actually doing. And we're trying to protect ourselves and stay safe and stay and not be overwhelmed by this pain. Of course, it makes so much sense. But we do that by rationalizing. So with the parents, I shouldn't be feeling this way because they've done so much for me in my life, and it's time to pay them back. Or with the flats, we're upset at something being wrong in our flats. I'm so fortunate to be in this position, therefore I shouldn't be feeling this pain. It's inappropriate. But the problem is that when we do this, we're disconnecting from our emotions, from what's true for us, from our truth, from our authenticity, and ultimately from these deeper wounds in the past, which we're pushing back. So we're repressing this aspect of ourselves, which is really, really painful. Firstly, in the long term, because those emotions don't disappear, we're then carrying them around with us the rest of our lives. We repress our shame, and then we're carrying it around the next day, though. It doesn't disappear. We just experience the world through this unconscious shame. Or maybe our unconscious anger makes us really irritable. Our unconscious helplessness makes us, means that we don't feel confident to engage with the world, or create new projects or whatever it is. And it represses our expression as well. We feel that we can't just be free with our desires, our needs, the things we want to say, our creativity, all these things. So there's a significant cost to avoiding, repressing, protecting ourselves from that painful emotion. And again, it's not like you don't have to change this at all. It's just a question of, do you want to pay the cost? That's the only question. It's entirely up to you what you do. And how do you deal with the situation then? Well, acknowledging that we feel how we feel, and we can only be honest about it or not, the first step is to be as honest as we can about what's really here. I'm angry, I'm upset, I feel ashamed. And just labeling it quite simply. We don't need to go into details too much into the story about why. It's just this situation has triggered this sense of shame or anger or sadness. Then we need to notice the resistance. That's step 2. Why am I afraid of going towards this emotion, allowing it, admitting it? Is it because I fear it'll be too much, it'll be overwhelming? Is it because it sort of contradicts my identity, something that I value, some image I hold of myself? Is that this feels really unsafe to go there? Explore it. I've got a longer video on how to work with resistance. Go check that one out for way more details on that. And the third one is seeing if you can get under the resistance to start to feel and just be with, welcome in that painful, threatening emotion. Bit by bit, you might have to resource yourself a bit first. I've got videos on that too. Check that out. But just at a high level, we need to learn to slowly welcome in these emotions that feel painful. And bit by bit, we can learn to increase our capacity to be with them, to tolerate them. And then you'll find yourself, as you go through the process, that the reward for that, because why would you otherwise want to feel this painful feeling, is that it moves through. We're no longer carrying this burden of shame and anger, and we feel lighter, more spacious, more free, and more connected to ourselves. We feel a bit more like ourselves. And then we simply don't need to deny our experience anymore. If you're angry at your parent, and just to be clear here, I'm not suggesting by processing your anger, I don't mean yelling at your parent or getting angry at them, but you can just acknowledge, I got really irritated today, and you can just be with that irritation and allow it and just let it move through your body without repressing it or acting it out. And it's simply, in my experience at least, a wiser way to live and a more connected, authentic way to live. That is much less painful in the long term as well, dealing with these emotions as they come up rather than having to deny them each time. Hope this is helpful. I do work with people one-on-one to help them work through these things. So check that out in the description below if you're interested, and I'll see you later. Bye.